We are now live. See if you can find it on the Twitter. We're a little later than usual and on a different day.
Yeah.
So I hope people aren't thrown off. But I mean, we're going to get a video for the...
Do you think people have caught on
For
that?
the YouTubes anyway.
Do you think people have caught on that we do this on this day?
Well, this is the wrong day.
Yeah.
Do you think people have caught on that we do it on Wednesday?
Yeah.
I mean, our loyal people have.
Yeah.
They're out there.
I wonder how many of them were just like, where are these guys? You gotta have, right? Sometimes.
Oh yeah, like what this? Well, that'll happen when like Festo goes on his thumbs up sprees for the heart sprees. I'm sorry, and then because then it like gets trending or whatever, and then people who have no idea what we're talking about come on because they're like, oh, this is the thing that's happening.
Retweet on RGV Sports.
I'm trying to get it. Wait, retweet it on RGV Sports? Or retweet it from RGV Sports?
From RGV Sports.
Where did it get posted to?
Oh, it's there. My bad. Talk to the people, Greg.
I am.
You're the host.
They're listening to me babble on about the logistics of setting up a Periscope and getting our followers up. Look at all these emojis for real though.
For real.
That's what's up. I'm actually just trying to get this thing to load so that I can follow along with our comments, but it's not happening.
What year did you find out about emojis?
What do you mean, like, I'm talking like 6 months ago I started using emojis. You started spearheading the movement.
In 2009, I asked someone, why are there empty characters? They're like, what is it? Like, it's emojis. I'm like, you mean emoticons?
When did it change? That used to be the right vernacular.
No, but emoticons is just when you see the actual symbols like punctuation, and then emojis are what it would transfer to.
You might have to follow along the comments because I can't get this stupid thing to load. So just keep it like
keep 100.
Do like this, where like you have whatever you're clicking on over here in this window, and then the window behind it has all our comments coming up. Then I can keep it on this. Hey, stop just don't just me.
I had someone tell me that yesterday. Like, what do you say? Are you not listening?
Do you think that's what that means?
Or that they thought that was, oh look.
Do you have it open? How many viewers do we have?
We have a lot. We have 6.
Well, there we go. Okay, I'm ready to get started if you are, I guess, because I just assume this isn't going.
How long have Y? Says Manny Chulo.
How long? I'm sure that's the start of a question. I just really need this thing to load. TBH.
We've been doing Periscope for, 5 minutes, and we've done it overall since the start of the football season.
I wouldn't even count this as time. We haven't done anything yet.
Yeah, the show's not in session yet.
Why can't I get this to load?
We should have like a little on-air thing.
It's at least working for you, right?
Yeah. Our followers went up because of the state thing.
I think my stupid IP address or something. I don't know. Who cares? Let's just start the show. Am I right?
Look at all these hearts we're getting.
Yeah, somebody's spamming it.
I like it.
Or is it different colors? Oh, it's different colors. We have 2 friends.
Yeah.
All right, who's ready? You ready?
I'm ready.
John, are you ready? John's not here. Okay, in 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to the RGVSports.com RGV Hoops podcast. This is episode number, who cares, because it's about how Edinburg Vela's going to state.
Yeah, state
That's
edition.
what this is all about.
Yep.
I don't know if either of us thought we would be here at this point. Yeah, I'm sure you did.
Yeah, because last week I said we'll record it Tuesday. You remember? I said that.
Yeah, okay, whatever. I don't think at any point you would have projected this, but we'll get to that. Let's talk about what we're looking at here. Edinburg Vela versus Lancaster at 7 p.m. Thursday at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio. Vela is the first 5A or higher team in history to qualify for state, and is that adjusted? Like, is that like old school?
It's not adjusted.
Okay.
Adjusted would be they would be the second because Harlingen made it in the 50s when they were 3A out of 4A.
3A out of 4A. Okay, so they're the second then since Harlingen in the 50s. Roman made it to state in the 70s. Sherilyn made it somewhere in there. Donna, Santa Rosa most recently in 2009, obviously at a lower classification. And then Edinburg High all the way back in 1922. That's about the list of it. But we were just sort of shooting around about this, but how much of a surprise is it to you that they made it based on what you thought about this team coming in? They've been number 1 all the way, but did you really think they had this kind of potential?
From what point?
At any point you want. Like, when the year started, I don't know that this was on the radar as much.
Well, if you ask me, I would say no, because we've seen it. We've seen teams come up short every year. And so I didn't think they were there. expectations wise, I guess they were talking it a bit up by saying they wanted to score 100 points every game. Didn't get to do that, but I think they did it like 3 to 5 times this season. The loss to McAllen Rowe was a concern, but you could kind of chalk that up as just a blessing in disguise for them, because I guess they kind of treated it like I don't know if you would know this example with the Dream Team in '92, where they scrimmaged against the college select team and they lost the scrimmage supposedly, and it kind of woke up the Dream Team. So you can kind of compare that to, I guess, to Vela, in that the loss to McAllen Rowe kind of woke them up, and that's the last loss since then. That was like December 20th, and they haven't lost since then. So since that point, they are like 16-0, 17-0, and now head into this. And I guess just the regional tournament, I figured when I saw the team, I figured they were in good shape only because they didn't seem like an athletic team the way that Vela was kind of shaken up athletically against Victoria East. So I thought that was a winnable game, but then Vela was trailing going into the fourth. So that was concerning, but then they fouled out one of their players got fouled out, and they made a lineup change and ended up forcing overtime and winning. And then I stuck around to see LBJ Austin play Laredo Nixon.
Right.
And I thought that if Vela would have played LBJ Austin, they would have probably lost. I think I was projecting a loss there, but then because they were more athletic, taller, and Laredo Nixon was shorter, so I felt they matched up better with Vela, and then Vela ended up drawing Nixon after Nixon beat Austin LBJ by 1, and Vela went on a 25-6 run open the quarter. So just seeing them, I guess, seeing each game, seeing each team warm up, I felt that Vela would win the game each time.
Interesting. Well, that sets up this matchup against Lancaster, which is number 3 in the state. For perspective, Vela's ranked number 8, and they beat number 15 Alamo Heights and number 16 Laredo Nixon to get here. We'll break down those games a little bit later in the show, but I do want to talk right off the bat about Lancaster, which is what I think people would most like to hear about.
Yeah.
So how has Vela gone about scouting Lancaster at this point?
They, Sunday, they went on YouTube, they went on Huddle, they contacted a couple coaches, and one of them agreed to share like a Huddle, like gave them access to the Huddle, to their Huddle account or something, and they were able to watch a game that team played against Lancaster, and kind of took notes from there. And then, like most of us who've kind of been curious about Lancaster, they went on YouTube,
right,
and saw them. Lancaster's the defending 5A champions, and they said that just in watching one game and watching YouTube, they had a pretty good idea for what they wanted to do. Kind of got together Sunday night and started putting up a plan, and Monday they got together for practice, and now they've practiced 4 times, if I'm not mistaken, since then. And then tomorrow, or I guess today, on Wednesday, they'll go through the last afternoon practice before going to San Antonio.
It seems like Lancaster's goals are to play fast and to bring some pressure on defense. Is that kind of what you've surmised from what you've learned when talking to them about it?
That's the biggest thing, I think, when you ask them about just what the priorities are. If they're going to say it's boxing out, that's number one, just boxing out, because they feel that, I guess the concern would be that they probably get second and third chance opportunities, so they don't want to give that up. And Vela doesn't have a player taller than 6'3", whereas Lancaster has 3 of them, I think, that are over 6'3", and 3 of them, 3 Division I athletes. So they're concerned about rebounding. They've said that, during the regular season, they're good at rebounding, but then as they've gone on in the playoffs, it's become harder and harder to get rebounds against some of these taller, more athletic teams. So rebounding is the biggest thing, and then the second biggest thing would be pressing, just because in the videos that we've seen in Lancaster, they're pretty good at swarming the ball, at applying pressure just the length of the court. And so today when I dropped by practice at Vela, they were going through drills where they just kind of swung around the ball and didn't allow for really one player to hang on for it too long. They were just swinging in until they got a shot. So Coach Rios was saying that's the goal, to either get an open 3 or try to draw the foul somehow and just swinging the ball around.
Does Vela have the tools to handle that pressure, just getting the ball up into the half court?
Ryan Garza is their ball handler, and I haven't really seen him in situations where they just pick his pockets. I haven't seen that yet this year. Maybe we'll see it with with Lancaster, but I think he's pretty good. He's a lefty, which I presume would give other teams problems in that they're not accustomed to guarding left-handed players, so maybe that plays into their advantage. And they also have a good amount of shooting, so I think they should be okay, or they've been okay so far, just trying to break the press. I don't see that being an issue.
I don't know if our video feed's working because neither of ours has moved in a while. Nobody's said anything about it, but I want to check if my phone's acting up. Commenters, are we going well? I mean, this looks normal. Doesn't say I'm out of space or anything. I guess it's fine. Okay then, if nobody says anything, we'll just continue. Oh yeah, and of course right now I sit down and it pops up again. Okay, where were we? You said guards can handle the pressure.
Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah.
Another thing that jumped out to me about Lancaster was they have, you said 3 Division I players on their roster right now?
Yeah.
Who are these key guys? Who do the fans of Vela have to look out for? Who are the biggest threats, and how do they try to stop those kids?
They did not know their names, and when I went in the afternoon, they broke before I got there, so I'll have that information in our story for Thursday's paper.
Okay.
But they have a kid who's going to Ole Miss, the other to UTEP, and the other Louisiana, if I'm not mistaken. So prominent college are just really good. I mean, that would be
right.
I think that would be a log for Player of the Year in our area, and they have 3 of those guys on their team. And just in watching them, we saw with their 6'9" kid how he was just really imposing and should present a lot of problems for Vela.
So how do they attempt to counter that? We talked about how do they attempt to counter kids who are 6'4" or 6'5". What do they do against a kid who's 6'9"?
They will try to do the same thing they did against Flower Bluff, which is try to get their big in foul trouble. So I was talking to Luis Salinas, who's Vela's tallest player at 6'3", and he was saying they're just going to try to bait him into fouls and just kind of try to push him around and, in essence, just try to push the players around before they get to their sweet spot. So that's the goal, but I imagine in this game, because they have that kind of low post presence, I can't imagine they're going to want to do anything inside. So I'd imagine this would be the game where Vela's just firing from the outside.
Especially because it seems like there's no reason to believe that Lancaster wouldn't be able to get the ball up into the half court where they could set up and just throw it inside. Like, typically, when there's a much smaller team, they would try to pressure them and give them issues that way. But I think athletically, Lancaster seems that they could handle that side of it, too. Yeah. Do you think pressure will be part of Vela's game plan? Is that something that they're going to want to do defensively?
Yes, and also they were saying how one of the biggest things was against Laredo Nixon, they felt that they showed that they could slow down a team that likes to run a lot, and Laredo Nixon did that more than any team, I guess, that they've seen this year. They showed that they could force teams to kind of play more of a half-court game, and Nixon hoisted a lot of three-pointers they usually do, and it didn't stop them from doing it against Vela, even though they missed a lot against Vela. But I think it just being in that pressure situation where Vela played good defense in the half-court set, they just kind of shot threes as a way to just kind of bail them out, and I guess that was just their they didn't have really any answers to just trying to get around Vela. They were down 25-6 after the first quarter, so I think they got flustered by Vela's defense and just settled for easy shots. So I guess that's what Vela's hoping to do against Lancaster.
Yeah, and I think I saw you write today that Vela might go to some zone to try to do that. Is that something they've experimented with before, or is that a new thing for them?
No, they've done that before, but I think now more than ever it might actually last a little bit longer. They might actually go that way for the duration of the game just because they don't have the size to really, the size or the speed, I guess, to try to contain them. I guess they think they might have the speed to maybe get ahead of them, but they definitely don't have the size. I don't think you could argue that. I mean, speed, you could argue, I don't know if you could calculate it as easily, but I think size, it's pretty clear that Lancaster has the advantage.
Right. Well, and that does allow you the zone to double inside and things like that.
Yeah.
Doesn't make the rebounding any easier, but at least you can, try to get 2 or 3 guys on the 6'9" dude and hope you bother him out of some mistakes there. If you had to make a prediction on the score, have you thought about that yet? What would you go with this? Well, I'm going to put you on the spot either way.
Okay, Lancaster 72, Vela 59.
That seems strong. I was gonna say like 70 something to 58. I think that the way for Vela to pull the upset is to just hit a lot of threes, right? Like that's got to be the go-to strategy on offense, at least.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I'm the most indecisive person on the staff, so if I had my way, I would pick 2 things. I would pick a wide open 30-point win for Lancaster, or the other way would be maybe like a 5-point win for Vela.
Right, you see a range.
I don't think there's really anything in between.
Right.
Yeah.
So is it on offense just a matter if they can get hot from outside? Because they've been a pretty three-point reliant at times team throughout the year, right? Mm-hmm. That's something that they go to pretty regularly.
They do, but I mean, I've seen teams do it a lot more, and I think they're a little more disciplined and not relying on it in every possession like Laredo Nixon did it. I want to say Laredo Nixon might have done it 8 out of 10 possessions. They were really not bashful about taking all these attempts. And our boy Will Schmacker, same thing. He went like 0 for 9, finished with 0 points. Also not bashful. I think those teams really waste a lot of possessions against Vela, and I think Vela's a little bit smarter in doing that. That's one of the things that Coach Rios was telling me after the game, and how they feel if they they feel that if they build a lead, that they're pretty good at managing the game, and that's a big thing that you kind of see with them, is that they are not shy about playing keep away. And I felt like Vela was playing keep away against Laredo Nixon, because from this late in the second quarter, you could just see they just kept swinging the ball, and with like a minute 20, a minute 30 left in the first half, they weren't looking to score. They were just swinging the ball, playing keep away, and then with 15 seconds, they lost the ball. But that just bought Vela time, because for a while, I think Vela hit a dry spell, and Coach Rose was saying that it didn't afford them to take too many gambles at that point. They were playing pretty conservatively and didn't want to take too many gambles.
Let's take a little look back at how Vela got here, and I've got some more general Vela topics to get to at the end of the show, but for right now I want to take a look at the games that got us to this point. In the regional semifinals, this was, what the hell, Mario? We're doing a podcast. This isn't even a call, that's an alarm?
I have it on silent.
Oh my goodness.
I had my phone on silent.
Come on.
Go ahead.
Some silent. In the regional semifinals, and you're gonna deal with it?
No, fair enough.
Woo! In the regional semifinals, they beat Alamo Heights 68-60. This was a game, you mentioned this a little bit, where Alec De La Cruz fouled out for them, and he's one of their big three, and then that forced them to go into this 5-guard lineup. How much did that help him coming out, or how much did that help the team coming out with the win in this one to shift to that smaller group?
Rio said that it was the turning point, because they were considering doing it anyway, but this kind of forced their hand to actually do it. I thought that at that point Vela was going to lose the game, because when you lose a member of the big three, kind of figured at that point they have no shot. But they were actually down 2 points when he fouled out, and De La Cruz hadn't played most of the third quarter anyway. He picked up his 4th foul early in the third, set out most of the third, came in the 4th, right away picked up another foul, fouled out, and that's when they brought, I think it was Chris Ochoa or Alex Cisneros. I think it was Chris Ochoa who they brought in, had the 5-guard lineup. And I don't think it might be a little misleading, because you might imagine 4 or 5 small players, but it was Hector Ruiz, who's like 5'11", 6 feet. So it wasn't a completely small lineup, but they still went out with 5 guards and really turned things around, forced overtime, and they used their speed in that sense to try to beat Alamo Heights, which I thought they had no shot of most of the game when they were trailing. But they had a kid who was, I think, number 22, I forget his name. He did really well. He took on Ryan Garza, he took on Hector Ruiz, and he was also good on the offensive end. And one of our loyal Periscope guys, John Paul, he tweeted at me during the game saying how he saw that kid play against DJ Johnson, against McGowan Memorial, and he took on DJ Johnson and did a really good job. The guy's name is Jonathan Dunn. Right. And really had a great game for them. He scored 26 points, but he only scored 2 points, I believe, after De La Cruz fouled out and he went small. He didn't have anything after that.
In that game, I was going to ask you about him. What made him such an effective threat for that team? Because he ended up, Jonathan Dunn, scoring 26 points. What did he do that gave them some issues, and how did they try to combat him?
His NBA comp, just to kind of give people a little bit of a visual, I would say, was Kawhi Leonard.
Okay.
Where just pressure defense, doesn't really command the ball too much. I mean, they ran the offense through him a little bit, but they didn't really dump the ball in him at all times. They had shooters that they went to, but I just think he did a really good job of picking Garza's pockets a bit. Ruiz, the same thing. So I didn't allow Vela to really get into its offense too much, and that's where they created a little bit of separation in the opening half. And then on the other end, Dunn was just very athletic, would take it the length of the court, would get rebounds, take it the length of the court and score. So he did a little bit of everything for them. He filled up the box score.
For Vela, the leading scorers were Ryan Garza and Hector Ruiz, both with 15. What did they do well in this game to have some success against that defense?
Garza really penetrated well against Alamo Heights. Had a couple 3-pointers. Ruiz also was just good one-on-one against some of these players. Had some crucial threes in the fourth quarter. And I think a lot of it just changed too when they put in their backup guards. But they were stressing how free throws is a big thing because really they had, I forget the free throw numbers there, but they had a lot of free throws there in the fourth quarter.
I think you said it was 11 of 20, which really isn't that good.
Yeah, it's not. That's why they were after the game. Ryan was saying how his teammates stepped up and had better free throw percentages, and how he needs to step it up. And then the following game, free throws also helped decide the game. But Ryan is just really good taking the ball, kind of getting anywhere he wanted on the court. Even though Alamo Heights had taller players, and Hector Ruiz has been good this year, just one-on-one. Just in general, I think I haven't seen anyone really stuff Ruiz. I think he's been good going up against anyone one-on-one. I would kind of compare him to Nick Young, which I would say is, a lot of people would think is not flattering, but I see it more in the sense that he's like good dribbling in front of you, and then either spotting up for a three-pointer, or he turns his back to you and then will post up and shoot a fadeaway jumper. And he's been good, I think, all year at getting his shots off.
So would you call him Swaggy Ruiz?
Yeah. Although Hector's a little bit more quiet, is what I've gathered. So he's not loud like Nick Young or dressy. He does. I mean, I haven't seen him outside his uniform, but he's not loud in the way he talks or dresses.
We have a Periscope question. Do you think that the nerves played a big part in him missing the free throws down the stretch there for anybody on that team or for the team in general?
Not for Vela. I think any other team, I would probably say yes, but a lot of the Vela players played travel ball. They had at least 10 of them play for the summer league team at the Edinburg Summer League, and Brian and Hector, they played in Vegas during the summer against kids that are going to D1 school. So they've been in that kind of environment, and this was their second trip there, so I wouldn't say that was the case.
Last question about the Alamo Heights game. Who would you say was Vela's MVP in this one?
Again, I can't single anyone out. Ryan Garza in terms of points, but I think the X factor was their backup guards. Chris Ochoa came up big. Carlos Azubel came up big. I would say them.
Okay. So then that got them into the game against Laredo Nixon, which they won 58-48. And the story here was that they went 25-6 in the opening quarter. How did they do that?
It's funny. I don't think anyone could believe that was the best case scenario, and they did it partly because they were able to. I guess their quote after the game was they were able to take Laredo Nixon out of its game. They didn't allow them to really play just to push the pace like they're used to. They settled for jumpers. Again, they shoot jumpers anyway, but in this case, they settled for jumpers and missed a lot of them. They really had a lot of bricks. It was really bad, and Vela capitalized. Part of the thing here too was that Alec De La Cruz got to play, and he had. I remember I tweeted this. I thought he had his moment because he missed the closing of the game the previous night against Alamo Heights, and then came on in this game and provided a spark for them. Scored. I remember he had like a steal and then scored as part of their rally early in the fourth quarter and kind of gave them a boost. And then Ryan Garza also had a couple steals that he took for layups, and they had like 5 3-pointers, I think, in that quarter, if I'm not mistaken. So that was big for Vela. I think Vela finished with 6 or 7 3-pointers, and 5 of them came in the opening quarter.
Laredo Nixon was supposed to be this run and gun team, and Vela wanted to slow them down. You talked about taking Nixon out of their comfort zone and forcing them into bad shots, but how did they do that exactly? Because it's not always the easiest thing to stop a team from running.
I think they had the speed. I think they had the defense to slow them down. They pressured the ball. They only have. I think they matched the ball because they only had one big, who was a wiry 6'3" kid, and he didn't score. He was scoreless in the opening quarter. So he was one of those guys too who they just collapsed underneath. So they didn't really have to worry about the interior pressure. A lot of it was just guarding the outside shots, and it was just a matter of them not making it. But they didn't really let they didn't really let Laredo Nixon get into the basket or drive. A lot of it was just outside shots and that were contested for the most part. I don't remember any wide open shots that Nixon got. A lot of it was just hand in their face or, a lot of it was just hand in their face.
Now, for as dominant as Vela was early in the second half, Nixon got within 5 at one point. As you were watching the game, did you feel like, oh, this is going to slip away?
Yeah.
Were you still confident, or where were you at during this run?
I thought they were going to lose in the fourth quarter because I was looking at the box score, and after the opening quarter, Vela lost every quarter after that. And at that point, I felt like maybe they might have been winded. At some point, I thought they might have been tired. Again, Coach Rios stuck with his 5-in, 5-out rotation, and I think at times you could see that Vela was a little bit tired, and I figured at some point this team that relies on three-pointers and makes a lot of them is going to start making them, and they had some success in the second half, so I thought it would slip. But then Vela just had another run late in the fourth quarter. Ryan Garza hit another gear, and I think with him, a lot of it is just he scores off of steals. I think the majority of the time, like when I see him get steals, I think for the most part it leads to baskets. I don't think there's ever a moment where he steals and then slows it down and goes in a half-court game. Like he steals and then he's up the court running and scores.
Now you would say, Alec De La Cruz here, we talked about how he didn't do that much against Alamo Heights because of foul trouble. Comes back in this game, he had 8 points, 6 rebounds, 3 blocks, 2 steals, and 2 assists. Filled up the stat line all over. What did he show you in kind of a bounce-back game?
He provided some size that they didn't have. He also guarded the Nixon's top player, who I forget whose name moved me right now, but he did a good job against them. Gave them a lot of rebounds. I mean, really, in terms of size, it's him and Luis Salinas. I know they list him as a guard. I would see him more as a stretch four, I guess you could say. And Luis Salinas is more the traditional big at 6'3", and more meat on him. But Luis Salinas went from starting his first 2 years to bench, started the first 20 games this season, went back to the bench as Vela's looking to play up a little more higher tempo, and that's where they have Alec De La Cruz, who I know they list him as a guard. I don't see him as that. I can see him more as like a 3 or even 4.
Now, when they pull off the win and they qualify for state, what was just the reaction and the atmosphere like for the players and the coaches and the fans and whoever else was involved?
I was periscoping it, and I think it looked better in person than looking at it through the camera, through the lens for some reason. I don't know why, but the players were happy, of course, but I think the coaches are the ones who really enjoyed it. And I think I kind of saw that those 2 games where the coaches were emotional, especially Coach Rios, who I did a feature on for Wednesday's paper, on how he spent 12 years at Economides, 6 as the head coach, and his last 6 years as the head coach, he only made the playoffs once. So he goes from that situation to making the playoffs these last 3 years, 2 Sweet 16s, and now a state tournament appearance. And I think for him, he probably enjoys this more than anyone else, just because he's seen what it's like to miss the playoffs despite having a good season. Whereas I think some of the players at Edinburg Vela are accustomed to just winning. It's just part of it's just what they know.
Right.
They've been successful at the middle school level or even travel ball, and then they've enjoyed the success the last 3 years at Vela. So I think for them it's normal. But Salinas, I think, is he had a standout career as a high school player. 4 years at UTPA, has 4 records, or when he graduated, held 4 program records, and then kind of had a little bit of a slump there. Now he's enjoying this, I guess you could say, historic run.
Yeah. Now we're going to talk about him. I have some general Vela topics now that we've gotten through Alamo Heights and the Nixon game, but we did have a question from Periscope. What is Vela's biggest weakness? What would you say?
Vela's biggest weakness will be rebounding.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, is that just this game specific, or is that as a team that's just generally their weak point?
That's the weak point as we get deeper into the playoffs. Because during the regular season they did well. Luis Salinas did well. He might have been a double-digit rebounder, and Alec De La Cruz also does a good job. So during the season when they play other Valley teams that more or less have the same height as them, it hasn't been an issue. But as they played Victoria East, which is an athletic team, they flew all over the place. They gave Vela a run for their money, and then these last 2 games too has just been a little bit tougher. So against a team that is has a big front line, I think it'll be the biggest issue.
When people talk about Vela, you think first about the big three, obviously Ryan Garza, Hector Ruiz, and Alec De La Cruz. But I want to talk a little bit about some of the other guys. You did a story on just the supporting cast heading into last weekend, I should say. So who are some of the guys outside of the big three? Who's the biggest impact player aside from those three, if you had to pick one guy?
The biggest impact player, it really varies just because I know it's a cliche that someone different steps up every time, but it is because Chris Ochoa came in and hit some big free throws for them, and he's one of those guys that kind of gets lost in the shuffle, but because especially their guard they're deep at the guard position, so he's someone who people might not recognize as much, but he really came up big with big free throws. Vince Olivares, who I did a story on as part of the supporting cast, really gives them a boost too. He was on the freshman dark team, if I'm not mistaken, last season, and then went from freshman dark as a freshman to this year being a varsity starter and kind of playing a big role there, and it's part of their rotation. So they have a lot of other guys. I don't know if I could really pin it on any one person, just because it seems like outside of the big three, they get contributions from anyone on any given night.
Well, then let me shout out some names, and you give me a little bit of a rundown of their game. You just talked about one kid, but give me a little more on Vince Olivares.
Like NBA comp, I would say a lesser, not as freakish Freak Greek.
Okay.
Just like a young Andrew Bynum. Like raw, good rebounder, just good energy guy, can guard bigs. Yeah, I think he gives that team some athleticism that they need off the bench. But I mean, he's started, he's come off the bench, and I think he makes his presence known. He doesn't really score too much, but I just think it's impressive that he's with this team as a sophomore and still has 3 years left. So I think he does his part.
Mike Garcia.
Mike Garcia will be. I was gonna say Matt Harpering, but he's he's a good 3-and-D guy, I think.
Okay.
Alex Cisneros would be the Spanish Patrick Beverly. I don't know if you like these NBA comments.
No, it's outstanding. I'm sure you're getting a little bit obscure, even for my kind of taste. But I'm sure that there are people out there in the universe who understand what you're talking about.
You know Matt Harpering?
And as long as I know the name.
Yeah.
As long as you give me the 3-and-D part at the end, then I can keep up with it.
Okay.
Who else do we need to talk about? There's a Trey Schiavone here. There's a Carlos Azubel. There's a who else deserves a shout out while we're talking about Vela's other guys?
Trying to mix this here. Let's see. I have the roster right here. Actually, too with. With Alex Cisneros, I think Coach was saying he's 5'7", did a really good job rebounding the last game. Chris Ochoa, also shorter point guard who had a lot of clutch shots. Let's see. I think it's really their big contributors. Luis Salinas, also just the more traditional big. They have him at 6'5". I think I've heard 6'3", but maybe 6'3", 6'4". Carlos Azubel too also came. He was part of their 5-hour lineup too against Alamo Heights there, and those are really the guys that get significant playing time. They had 16 guys on the roster, and was talking with one of the assistants today. They bumped up 4 guys from JV just as part of their practice squad. So the guys that I mentioned or that we mentioned here are really the guys that get the bulk of the playing time.
Okay. So now coming in with the 5-in and 5-out lineup, has that changed at all as they've gotten into the playoffs? Because even, I'm thinking more college and pro here, but a lot of teams like to tighten their rotation as they get deeper into it. Has Vela kept kind of the same rotation that they've done throughout the year?
There were times where I saw them, I think, in a tournament game and maybe even the district opener against Sherilyn Pioneer, where I thought they were married to the idea, but they kind of broke away from it as the game went on. But in the playoffs, I think they kind of need it just because they try to go all out every possession. That I don't think they could maintain that for 32 minutes. So
right.
It's really just 4 minutes. I mean, the substitution pattern is pretty much the same every game. It's 4 minutes starters, 2 minutes bench, and then they bring the starters back, and it just repeats like that throughout the whole game.
Okay, so 4-2, 4-2, 4-2, 4. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. So now another thing I want to talk about with Vela is Coach Lalo Rios. You talked about him a little bit. he started, like you said, 12 years at Economides. I think it was 6 as an assistant and 6 as the head coach, something like that. So it seemed towards the end he had some pretty good years there, and that is a school that, to the nicest way to say this, they typically don't do that well in a lot of different sports.
And I mean, if you want to point to why, I would think part of the reason coaches will tell you is the commitment isn't there, partly because the kids feel an obligation to help out the family, so they have to work, which keeps them away from the field, and so having those lower numbers kind of doesn't help their chances. But
so the point I'm driving at is, was it considered that he did well with what he had there, or how do people reflect on his Economides career? When they had to make the decision whether to hire him or not, how did that time, look on his resume?
When he got hired at Vela?
Yeah.
I think when he got hired at Vela, the thinking was he did a lot with a little bit. They're the new school, and he helped them. I think he started the year, I think it was like 18-2 his final year, and finished 25-7, missed the playoffs. But he was telling me today his biggest sales pitch was that he had been part of a program, saw from the ground up, and was able to do it. Was able to have success or relative success with that group. And so going into Edinburg Vela in 2012, where they already saw the kind of talent that was already coming up from their feeder middle school, they felt that he'd be the right coach to bring him along and kind of groom that group.
And how much of the success now at Vela do you think is owed to him, and how much do you think it's owed to the talent that's there? Because this is, like the opposite of what we talked about with Economides. Vela's done well in a lot of different sports.
Yeah, like I would say at Economides, it was him. He was a coach. He was an assistant under his dad. His dad was the head coach for the first 6 years, and he was an assistant under his dad, and then he took over. So I think this is just a product of what he could do when he has this kind of talent that's used to playing travel ball. Of course, not under him. They're playing in outside leagues, and then they come in. I mean, they already knew about these kids. I don't think these kids were average players who he brought from obscurity. Like, these are kids who were already on the radar, and he helped elevate them to a different level.
Now, I covered Vela in the playoffs, one of my first assignments here 2 years ago, when it was Garza's freshman year, I guess.
Lucky.
And I got to cover their playoff game, and at that time they were still doing the same kind of stuff they're doing now in terms of the 5-in and 5-out. Now, so does that come down to just the depth and personnel they have, or is that sort of Rios' coaching philosophy that that's the best way to run a team?
That's 50-50 because they're the biggest 5A school in 31-5A. They're the biggest school in 31-5A. Next year they'll be the smallest in their 6A district. But this year they just have a lot of talent. And like I said, even their bench, they go 10 deep. I think Coach Rose was saying they could go 12 or 13. But as you saw, even like some of their bench guys, like Carlos Asubel and some of the other guys, are able to contribute. I don't know how they would. I don't know what their production level would be if they were swapped for a starting role the entire team all season, but they certainly fit well as in their roles, and like he said, they flourished in their roles, so you could say they're a star within the role.
Right. So obviously he didn't come in and have immediate success. His team did not make the playoffs the first year. And then they did the second and third, and now they're obviously where they are. What did he have to do or change, or how did the process come along to get Vela to the point where it is?
My understanding was the players the first year, and I mean, I guess you'll hear this in any sport, were divided. The first year weren't really paying attention, weren't taking it seriously.
Well, and they did all come from different schools and things like that. It's sort of a weird scenario.
Yeah, and I think I think he had to cut some of the players. Even like just in talking with them for some of the stories that I was thinking about doing for a supporting cast and some of the bench players, he was saying how there were kids who are not happy with the roles and they're not playing now, or they're not playing as much, or maybe not even with the team. That's the thing that he was saying too, was that the players that are on the team accept the roles, and there's some players that of course didn't like the idea of being shuffled in and out, but how I think you generally see that all these players are okay with being starters one day and going to the bench the next, or not playing as much. Like against Alamo Heights, I think I saw Vince Olivares play a good amount of the game, and then there were parts against Alamo Heights that I didn't see him, and he didn't seem frustrated by that. And I even asked Luis Salinas too today, like if it bothered him at all that he was that he was a starter. Now he's on the bench, but it doesn't really seem to phase anyone. I think you can see in the way they celebrate. They're just happy to be along for this ride.
Absolutely. So is there anything else you want to touch on with Vela before we get out of here? I think we've gone what now? We are at 36 minutes about Vela. That's not too bad. Is there anything else we need to cover before we get going?
No, I mean, I think for our coverage, I'm going to be there. We're going to have a photographer, and we're going to have S-Dog. S-Dog's going to go.
S-Dog from Jeezy.
S-Dog, our page designer / columnist, is going to go. It'll be our first trip to state. I haven't been to state for basketball, obviously, or any of the other sports, volleyball, or even wrestling, where I think I should have gone, but we'll talk about that some other day.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, it was fun being there for regionals. People were asking for me to do Periscope a little bit longer, but I couldn't between writing and taking notes and Twittering and Facebooking and handling all that. It was kind of difficult to try to juggle everything, but I made sure to try to get it in at the end, which I think is what most people wanted to see. Ultimately, just the celebration, and you can tell it was a big deal. I mean, Edinburg Vela traveled really well. I thought they were going to have... I wasn't sure what to expect, I guess, actually, the second day, but they still had the same number of people, which I guess implies that a lot of those people got a hotel and stayed for the following game, because Edinburg Vela was done playing at 7:30 Friday, and then they were playing again Saturday at 2 p.m. So, I mean, they traveled well. I'm curious to see how they travel for state. It's their second trip to San Antonio in less than a week. They played at Blossom Athletic Center Friday, Saturday. Now they'll be at the Alamo Dome. I was talking to Coach Rose today, and he said part of what they'll have to adjust to is playing in a stadium, because they're just used to playing in school gyms where they don't have the rows or the seating behind the basket. So he said that was part of his adjustment when he played at the college level. He thinks they're going to have to make that adjustment too, and just getting used to it. I don't know if I buy necessarily, because I think a lot of kids pick a ball or just play outside growing up, and I think that's the biggest dome. So I don't know how much that has to do with it. But Edinburg Vela will leave at 3 or 3 p.m. on Wednesday for San Antonio. They're going to have a pep rally at the school, and then their fans will see them off. They're going to go to San Antonio. From there, then they're going to play Thursday at 7 p.m. at Alamo Dome. And win or lose, you're going to stay for the state tournament, which goes Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday is the final. So, they're going to be there for 3 days, and our stay there will depend on how well Vela does.
Absolutely. So, to keep up with that, people can follow you on Twitter where?
Mario_Gira, retweeted at RGV Sports.
Yeah, because all of our Periscope stuff will go out at RGV Sports through Twitter. Yeah. And then you can click on that link there. It's also just RGVSports.com on Periscope, although I don't know if you can search stuff on... I don't know how Periscope works.
Yeah.
So you can find RGVSports.com on Periscope and subscribe or whatever it is you do on Periscope things. Mm-hmm. And you can follow S-Dog, our guy S-Dog, for tweets from his time over there at State at Saul_monitor.
There you go.
He's there for that stuff too. And that's where you're going to get all your Edinburg Vela coverage. At Monitor Photo will be there. Maybe they'll put some stuff out, but we'll retweet that from either your account or Saul's account or RGV Sports. So that's really all you need to know.
We're going 3D.
And of course, all the stories are going to go up on RGVSports.com. And if you don't like to type RGVSports.com into your web browser, you can find us on Facebook at RGVSports.com or at RGV Sports, one of those. Mm-hmm. So that's everything you need to know about where to find us, and then we will come back to you next week with a recap of Mario's adventure to state. Maybe we'll even get Saul in here to talk about his experience too. So look forward to talking to you folks then, and thank you for listening. We had one more Periscope question that came up in the middle of the show that I was interested in, but I didn't want to bring it up in case you didn't know the answer.
Of course I know that.
Do you know how the pairings are made for state?
It's based off win percentage.
Okay. And
Vela tied with another school, and then it's coin flip. And the coin flip determines 3 and 4. So whoever wins 3 matches up with whoever wins that one matches up with 1. The loser goes with 2.
So they had to play the best team? Or are they in the 2-3-ish game?
Whoever wins the coin flip goes against 1, was my understanding.
Well, that doesn't make sense, right?
Why?
Why would winning?
I know you would probably want to say winning it would go to the lower.
Yeah.
I guess because you're just winning it, like it doesn't imply. I guess
Okay.
it doesn't really imply.
Right. Winning or losing is probably just the wrong terminology. Just whoever coin flipped goes against. Okay. So it came down to a coin flip.
Yeah, and
because the listener, and I don't know if he's still here, but he was saying that he thought that the UIL standed to benefit from pitting Vela against this team, and one of this team's rivals is in the other game, so they could have a really intriguing state final matchup, apparently.
Yeah.
I don't know if you think the UIL would pull any mess like that or whatever.
No, and I mean, they didn't find out who was in a. They didn't find out the pairings until Sunday morning, and Rio said that he got an email like at 9 a.m. or whatever it was, and they found out then because ultimately the coin flip determines it, whether you know even if you know the win percentage, it still comes down to the coin flip in the pairings.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it was essentially just a coin flip, right?
Yeah.
So what does the win percentage factor in then?
1 and 2.
I guess if there's no ties? Or
No, the win percentage, I guess that's up 1 and 2.
Oh, okay, and then there's just a coin flip.
Yeah.
That's weird.
He didn't know Saturday when I asked him, and then today he had a clear understanding of it. That was my interpretation of what he was saying.
That sort of encourages you to schedule bad teams if you think you might make it to state.
To schedule bad teams?
Yeah, then you get a better win percentage.
Yeah, but you'd imagine that they're not ready to play the good teams at that point.
Right, but I mean, like...
There's actually, I was looking, and in state, there's actually like there's actually a 21 and 17 team.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I don't know if they made like a really surprising run or what, but
yeah,
that seemed very weird.
We're pulling it up right now. So this team, we should put them on blast, right? Fort Worth Dunbar, 23 and 11.
Let's see what I can do on the max preps.
And you'll like this. John would have flipped out if he would have seen this. Playing for the state title in Class 6A is Houston Math, Science, and Technology.
In 6A?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
The only undefeated team at state is Humble Ediscodia?
What division?
6A.
Wow.
Dallas Lincoln, Class 4A, is 22 and 14.
Dunbar Wildcats basketball. State rank 106. Is this the right team? Yeah, they're going to play Ellis. Most of what's on Max Preps is the wins, not surprisingly.
Yeah, and that's what when I was talking to Coach Rios, he was saying too that as the season progresses, a lot of these teams, a lot of these playoff-bound teams don't bother updating anymore because they don't want to give up any competitive advantages there, so they just stop.
That makes some sense.
Which is good for us as reporters.
Right. Certainly helps our case quite a bit.
Yes.
All right, I think I accidentally just closed the Periscope window. However, if there are any final questions before we sign off, I'm sure Mario will read them now because I accidentally screwed up. Can you get on the page?
I can't get on the page. I am there. We have 5 viewers at 2:11 in the morning.
Yeah,
Killing?
we wanted to do our research to make sure we could bring you an educated discussion for the on-demand viewing later.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, that was
I
why
like
I
that.
didn't come over here right until 12:15 whatever.
I think I was like a rapper. I just showed up and just.
Well, you're just the man.
Yeah. Well, thanks for
That's easy.
Well, today I think I did a lot of research for this coming in. So.
All right, bye 4 people.